Hello, everyone. Good morning if you're in New York. Good afternoon if you're in Europe. And if you're in Asia, what on earth are you doing at this time of night? I hope you're watching us on replay. It's Treasury Dragons again, and this time it's our favorite topic of all. Today's subject is cash forecasting, and I can reveal to you that I've just finished compiling the data from our annual Treasury Technology Survey, and cash forecasting wins two prizes. One, it's the least automated area of Treasury operations, and two, it's the area that most treasurers, 68%, say is going to be a priority for the year ahead. So this session could not have come at a better time. Please welcome back a veteran Treasury Dragon tamer, Jon Paquette, VP Solutions at TIS. Jon, welcome back.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
And you know how this works by now. I have my little analog timing device. You have 7 minutes, but now, Jon Paquette, the floor is yours.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot, Mike. And as mentioned, I'm Jon Paquette with TIS. We're a specialized provider in the cash flow, liquidity, payments, and bank connectivity space. Obviously, today we're going to be talking a lot about our cash forecasting solution as well as our working capital insights solution. I would say in addition to today's presentation, definitely check out some of the success stories and customer stories on our websites. I think this really brings to life sort of what our solution does and how it helps our customers achieve their objectives in cash forecasting, working capital insights. There's a couple up here on the screen now. Kellogg's, who recently won an Adam Smith Award for working capital, actually, and through our solution, they were able to free up about $9 million in excess cash through insights provided through our tools. So that's an interesting one that might resonate with a lot of people today. Another one is Unilever, who was able to really standardize, simplify, automate, as the Treasury Dragons pointed out in the introduction, the automation of the cash forecasting process is something that I think the industry is really still striving for. So that's a great example of an organization that was able to do that really, really well. And en route to that, ultimately win an Adam Smith Award and be recognized by Eurofinance as well. So I just wanted to kind of point out a couple of materials you could tap into after the presentation here today. And although our customers' objectives always differ customer to customer, there's generally three things we're always looking to solve for all of our customers. And that's, achieving time savings through process automation, right? We already talked about the importance of process automation to the forecasting process. We do that through automatically aggregating data inputs from a variety of different sources. Every organization is different. Every organization uses different sources to drive their cash flow forecast. But the key there is to bring those all in an automated way so you can create that forecast much, much quicker. And also by using our workflow capabilities, as mentioned in the introduction from the Dragons, a lot of organizations are bringing in forecast inputs from multiple different regions, local business units, shared service centers. And so giving our customers workflows to be able to manage the aggregation of that data, the approval and the sort of manual manipulations that might need to occur en route to publishing that forecast ultimately drives a lot of automation through our forecasting product. The second is more proactive cash savings or better use of excess cash is the way I like to think about it. Ultimately, once you create that forecast, you want to become a better cash manager. You want to, reduce interest expense, increase interest income, identify more quickly what you can repatriate, right? We do that through a lot of the forecast logics and distribution capabilities that we provide within the tool. We also have a proprietary smart logic, an AI-based tool that's able to look at historical cash flows and your projection for future cash flows and understand if there's anything there that might sort of be driving inaccuracy in your forecast. A good example of that is, say you have a customer that typically pays you in 45 days, you're forecasting payment in 30 days. You can create an additional scenario or just drill into that insight directly to the tool itself. And the last is through the working capital insights tool, which really leverages a lot of the data that's already being received to drive the forecast, to give you some additional insights into DSO levels, DPO levels, really good proactive insights into your buyer and supplier behavior to ultimately be able to drive a lot of working capital insights, right? So main capabilities of our tool, how do we make it happen? We bring all the data together in an automated way. And up on the screen here, you're seeing an example of a lot of the data sources we typically would bring in for a typical customer to be able to drive a good forecasting process. That would include, obviously, bank statement information, which is the basis for your cash actuals. A lot of customers also like to use that in some sense to drive a projection of future cash flows based on historical cash flows. There's obviously ERP data, which is a great source of invoice level AR, AP information that's used to drive a really accurate short range forecast. And then we bring in other sources like FP&A systems, budgeting systems, sales forecasts to drive the mid to long range forecast. And if our customers are using a risk management system or a TMS, that's another data element we would typically bring in to incorporate in those deal maturities and other treasury related entries. So ultimately bringing all this data together in an automated way, letting our customers forecast based on really good inputs, automating the process for creating a forecast quickly, and then layering on good technology on top of that to be able to drive that forecast. So, some of those technologies I've already called attention to. Maybe a handful here to point out is the advanced workflows setups that allow organizations to specify out to their business units what types of forecast inputs they want them to provide, and then ultimately confirm those data inputs or make manual adjustments to them. There's the scenario planning. A lot of our customers like to bring in information, automatically to drive a baseline forecast, but then also create multiple different scenarios of that forecast to be able to understand what if, X, Y, Z variables go wrong? How does that impact ultimately my cash management, liquidity planning decisions? There's the P&L to cash logic that allows customers to get, beyond that sort of short range forecast input and bring in sales level data, projected P&L data, information from the budgeting and FP&A systems to drive a really accurate mid-range to long-range forecast. And then maybe lastly is the proprietary smart logic, which is our AI that can look at historical behavior and sort of compare that to what you have projected out into your future cash flows to identify anything that might be maybe out of alignment with what the historical pattern recognition behavior kind of tells for that forecast input. In terms of implementing the tool, so it's obviously a very sophisticated forecast tool, but you don't have to start with the most complex implementation. We typically think of this as the walk, run, fly approach, and you can kind of build on the capabilities over time so that the tool grows with your organization as your forecasting needs ultimately grow. So if you're on Excel today, which it sounds like a lot of the listeners are, maybe a good first step would be the walk approach, where you're automating the forecast actuals into the system. You're characterizing cash flows. You may be using some of that as an indication of future cash flows, and maybe you're manually uploading some of the forecast inputs into the tool itself to be able to derive, a good 8 to 12 week forecast, right? And that kind of gets you up and running. And obviously, once you have that forecast in place, you're already seeing a lot of insights into your business. You're learning a lot about how cash flows throughout the company, and you're already becoming a better cash manager. Move that over to the run approach. Here, we typically would bring in a lot of the automated data inputs directly from the customer source system. So that's that invoice level AP and AR information that derives a really accurate, say 8 to 12 week forecast. It's also connecting up other source systems like maybe a TMS for deal maturities, beginning to layer on some of our more advanced analytics capabilities to kind of get you more automated and more sophisticated in your forecasting process. And then ultimately you can progress to a run phase where you're really bringing in at this stage, full, say, long range to mid range forecast information from a P&L or from an FP&A system. You're probably out to 26 weeks or maybe even 52 weeks for a really accurate forecast. You're doing pretty sophisticated variance analysis, and you're using a lot of our AI machine learning capabilities to be able to dig deeper into that customer and supplier behavior. But generally the process always starts with us really understanding what your business is looking to achieve. As I mentioned at the beginning, kind of bringing it all back home here, we're always striving at those customer use cases and wanting to drive a lot of value into the customer's process. So it's understanding what are your cash flow drivers, what are your working capital drivers, over what time frame are you looking to project out cash, where is that data coming from, what are your source systems, where are the opportunities to apply AI machine learning to be able to refine that forecast, and ultimately getting our customers to a fully optimized short and long range forecast that they can really use to drive improvements within their business. So I think I'm about out of time here, but this is TIS here. Sort of just a quick glimpse at us. If you're interested in learning more about our cash flow forecasting solution or any of the solutions that we provide, always happy to connect after today's session.
Tremendous. Thank you very much, Jon. And thank you for coming up bang on time. That's great. Let's bring our dragons back to the stage. And as is traditional, I'm going to select one dragon to lead questioning. Andy, can I turn to you? Andy Gifford, do you have any questions for Jon about the TIS cash forecasting proposition?
Yeah, thanks, Jon. Great presentation. I particularly like the sort of start, walk, run, fly type approach you have to it. Just thinking about when you get to the fly, which is obviously where we'd all like to be at some point in time, there's obviously a lot of smart logic in there, and there's obviously also a lot of existing data that you're drawing in from your sources. What sort of sense checking is your system able to do to say, all right, that stuff that's come in, I don't have to particularly look at it hands-on. There's automatic sense checking within that says this is valid documents, this is valid data.
Yeah, so I mean, it can do that in terms of data validation, but I think the more value add to the corporates is that it'll actually look at the AP and AR invoice level information that's the driver of the short range forecast. And it'll say based on, particular customers, when are they likely to pay based on their past patterns. So if a baseline forecast is projecting out a customer receipt to come in accordance with, say, your standard terms for that customer, maybe that's 30 days, but that customer always pays you in 42, 45 days, it'll actually draw out those insights, bring them to your attention, and then allow you to create another scenario on top of that. And obviously, once you aggregate that across all of your invoice level AR and AP information, that becomes a super valuable tool in seeing around corners or creating new versions of the forecast, for a scenario planning.
And I guess that also identifies for you some of the levers you could use in order to make your cash forecast be where you wanted it to be.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of the tie into the working capital insights tool as well. If you know that you're going to need cash and maybe need to push on certain payers more aggressively to bring that cash in, you can use the insights that you're deriving from the working capital insights tool in combination with the cash projection to be able to understand where the the levers you could potentially pull might reside. So.
Great. Thanks, John. Thank you.
Tremendous. Thanks, Andy, and thanks, John. If there is another question from a dragon, you know the drill by now. Just raise. And David Kelly is straight in with no hesitation. David, your question for John.
John, thank you very much. I wanted to kind of push you a little bit on the. So it seems to me that it's all around about data. It's about getting the data into TIS, but that has to come from various sources, as you mentioned. In your experience, how realistic is actually getting the data from the different systems from a client's perspective, and how difficult and time-consuming will that be, and how realistic is it, in your experience working with clients? Because I know this is generally a real problem that clients have, and just getting the data to you.
Yeah, we recognize that as well too. So we have proprietary plugins for a variety of different ERP systems that simplify that process, where you can actually say, hey, give us XYZ table from, say, SAP, Oracle, or whatever it might be. And the data can come out in that standard form, be ingested into our platform, and ultimately drive the forecast that way. But we've also done a lot of work. I mean, we recognize completely the importance of data integration. So we've done a lot of work to make that pretty flexible so that we can, a lot of times, work with whatever extracts the customers can give us and actually complete the mapping within our system itself to say, hey, here's where, say, MS Dynamics is going to provide this APAR information. So yeah, it's always an area that we're looking to improve on. I think it's one of our key USPs. So it's an area we're always investing in as well to make that process as simple as possible.
Thank you.
Tremendous. Thank you, John. And thank you, Dragons, for now.